I want you to do me a favor, Brandon. I want you to look up the meaning of the word paperclip in French.
All right, let me check it out. I'm going to Google Translate here. Switching to English. Paperclip. Switching it away from paperclip, which is what I had it on Japanese. Trombone blast.
Yeah. Wow. I just found that out. It's great.
That's very good.
I love sausage and beer. Best regards. This is episode 247 of Insert Credit, a curated arrangement of video game topics where our panel of experts must address each question presented to them in no less than 6 minutes or reckon with a horrible buzzer. I'm Alex Jaffe, and when I'm starting a video game, I typically choose the medium difficulty.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm Frank Cifaldi. When I'm starting a video game, I typically don't mess with the difficulty at all. But the second that I'm frustrated on a game that I don't care much for, I go straight for easy because I don't care.
Seems right. I'm Tim Rogers, and I start video games on whatever the difficulty setting is set to by default, because I know full well that video games are most often designed and tuned around whatever difficulty setting they suggest of the player at the beginning. There are times I would switch it to hard, depending on the game, though the games I like on hard usually don't let you play them on hard until you finish them, which is a little curious.
That's a shame. Why is that? Why won't a game let you play on hard right away if you really want to?
I don't know, but man, Kingdom Hearts 2 is so good.
Yeah?
Kingdom Hearts 2 is really good on hard, and so is Final Fantasy VII Remake. They're very, very good video games to play on the hardest difficulty, but you can't play them on the hardest difficulty till you beat them once, which is weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I don't know why that is. I guess they're artificially creating replay value.
No, I'm Brandon Sheffield, and I usually start on default, but sometimes I will start on easy for something where, like, I know that the difference is the amount of health that enemies have, and that's about it. Like, then I'll just start on easy because why not? So I'd say it's about 50-50 for me, default or easy. But the reason I believe that they don't let you play on harder difficulties right away is because developers are deathly afraid that you will think that the game is too complicated and quit and not see very much of the video game. I'm 90% sure that is the reason for not allowing you to do it.
They put a little disclaimer on there.
The thinking is that if you're good enough at it, then you can handle all this extra stuff, but otherwise you shouldn't try.
In the case of Kingdom Hearts, I think they should just let you have it.
Why not?
Because anybody getting on board there, if they can find the difficulty setting, they should enjoy it as a treat. It's if the game starts up, all they gotta do is say recommended, and then if you choose hard, say this game's real hard on the hard setting. If you've never played one of these before, try it on normal. Like, I mean, I think a lot of games do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that stuff goes wrong in user tests and the focus groups kind of bring out the absolute worst interpretations of anything. And I understand that the nightmare exists that the player will launch into the hard mode even after being warned against it 4 or 5 times and then give up on the game. That person might also lose their controller. They might also accidentally step on their game console because they keep it on the floor. They might slip and drown in their toilet instead of taking a dump. There's a whole lot of other stuff. I say just let me have the hard mode, man.
Yeah, I think it's particularly tough for Japanese companies to get around that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think a lot of Western companies are doing that stuff already, but for the Japanese companies, they feel like these games are too complicated already.
That God of War game had let you have the Give Me God of War difficulty from the very beginning, which was a very hard difficulty. They just let you turn it on, and they tell you, hey man, it's kind of going to suck if you're not like a real pro. And then the sort of like meathead dude who's just going to insist he's the best at video games on earth because he watches his favorite esports YouTuber all day or whatever. Like, that kind of guy is going to get through the whole game on the hardest difficulty and then tell people that it's the best game ever and that it wasn't that hard.
I feel like Doom kind of popularized that.
I beat Kingdom Hearts 3 and I was like, I don't want to play this game anymore. And then much later, I was like, oh, I could play it on the hard difficulty. And I'm like, oh, this rules. This is fun. But it took like a year for me to get back into that.
Do you think that game was designed on the hard difficulty?
No, I don't. I think the hard difficulty is just kind of, it's kind of a delicate balance on the amount of extra little challenges they juice out of it. I feel like the Final Fantasy VII Remake was designed for the hard difficulty for a wide variety of reasons. But yeah, interesting question.
All right. Well, I'm going to count that as topic 1. So let's move on to number 2. Bloomberg reports that Rockstar is attempting a more culturally sensitive approach to Grand Theft Auto 6. People are already mad about this.
Yeah.
But how do you remedy the tone of GTA while maintaining its sort of crass and irreverent spirit?
Well, I'm going to tell you, first of all, it's real funny that the people who are mad at this are your typical kind of conservative person who 20 years ago would have been like saying to ban these games. That's very funny.
Yeah, friend of the show, Isaiah, was talking about this, how they've gone from these games should not be available to you should be able to shoot a prostitute in the face, and the woke mob is destroying our freedoms.
Very interesting stuff. I mean, I'm not going to say Red Dead Redemption 2 is the most culturally sensitive video game ever made, because it's not. But there is an ocean of difference between the Grand Theft Auto that you remember or think you remember. If you're a fan of Grand Theft Auto, you're just kind of a passing glancer at it. There is an ocean of difference in the complexity and maturity of the writing in Red Dead Redemption 2 versus even just Grand Theft Auto 5. And it's the same writers, right? So I don't know, man. I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is basically a Grand Theft Auto game.
But is it a comedy?
Well, no, but I mean, is Grand Theft Auto a comedy though?
I'd say intentionally, yes.
I agree. I mean, what makes it culturally insensitive is that they're like kind of trying to offend, I feel.
Yeah, it's got jokes, but I mean, at the core, Grand Theft Autos 4 and 5 were really just kind of big story-based RPGs where there was meaningful character growth and the characters learn things and go have arcs, and except for the character who is specifically indicated as a psycho who will never change or never learn anything. It's kind of like he's in there as a dark remnant of the main character's past. There is a story in there, and they have been interested in doing more than stupid jokes for the last 2 games in the series, which covers a decade and a half of history. They have been interested in that. We've got Bully, we've got Red Dead Redemption 1. Like, they have been interested in more than just jokes. And I, for one, say, why not make a Grand Theft Auto that's just a good story? Because Red Dead Redemption 2 had a good story. And not only a good story, but a good, meaningful story that was very critical of American exceptionalism. And there's just a whole lot of really meaty, I hesitate a little bit to say just actual like literary stuff in there. Let these people go ahead and make a cool story. They've proven to me that they can do it. I remember Grand Theft Auto 3 being compared to The Sopranos. Do you remember this? Does everybody remember this? It's The Sopranos of video games. Why? Because it's got voice acting and some gangsters in it. Like, it definitely wasn't The Sopranos of video games. It was, the Simpsons riff on The Sopranos of video games.
The Fat Tony of video games.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's the fact that anyone would be upset or pretending to be upset about this. I mean, the nature of the Grand Theft Auto games has changed so drastically between Grand Theft Auto 2 and 3, and then again between Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City, where your character now has a voice and he's voiced by, rest in peace, Ray Liotta. And then they've been changing tone very drastically every time. And in their games outside Grand Theft Auto, they've been making enormous strides toward doing stuff differently, both with game mechanics. Like, they've clearly cast their vote on the side of verisimilitude, whereas there was for a while there were open world games like Saints Row that were saying let's focus on the funny stuff. Open world games are inherently funny, whereas with Red Dead Redemption 2, I feel like they very clearly cast a vote that Rockstar is going to make just one huge game at a time, and each of these huge games is going to be a spiritual continuation of the previous one, because Red Dead 2 felt like a spiritual continuation of Grand Theft Auto 5. I feel like Grand Theft Auto 6 will be a spiritual continuation of Red Dead 2. And I feel like Red Dead 2, where the prevailing opinion when the game first came out was your character's so slow, takes forever to get anywhere, your horse can get sick, my horse hit a tree and now he's dead, my horse kicked me in the head and killed me, right? Like the prevailing opinion out there was this game is so realistic that it's stupid, but that just ended up being funnier in the long run for the real comedians these days. Like them Hauser brothers or whoever they've got over there, they are not the comedians anymore. The real comedians are the people posting GIFs and viral clips on their TikToks and Twitters. There can still be a crassness to it. It's going to come out in the clips.
It's emergent. Let
them go ahead and have their bone serious, stone-faced crime story and do make it about a non-white, non-male main character. Like, go for it.
Sure.
Like, let's see what you got. They've got plenty of people working over there. I don't know. Sorry, I've researched a lot of this independently too recently for various reasons.
I got stuff to say about this too, though.
Let's add a little time to this.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about, they talk about this stuff hand in hand with sensitivity reading and things, and I think that people misunderstand the point of sensitivity reading. There was a good thread on this a while ago, but it's not about trying to make a game that doesn't offend anybody. Sensitivity reading is about knowing who you're offending and how. And you can do it on purpose. You can offend people if you want to. They're not going to stop you from doing that. It's just being aware of who you're offending and in what ways. And if you want to do that, then you can do it. And if you don't want to do it, then you will be presented with options for how not to do it. But it's not about making things toothless or uninteresting or bland or generic. It's about
absolutely
full awareness of what's going on with I wasn't suggesting that you were saying that or anything, Tim. I just wanted to mention that because a lot of the things that they are afraid of are obviously not things to actually be afraid of. They're worried that there's going to be like a woman who's a character, and that's entirely their own problem. A woman can still be foul-mouthed and hit people in the face and be offensive in certain ways and whatever, but maybe the intentionality of it is more targeted and less blanket. Let's use as many slurs as we can in this sentence. Like, it's not going to be that. It's going to be like, I'm going to use this particular slur against this particular person for this particular story reason. I think it's going to be more like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I think that this is all still, obviously speculation coming from unknown sources, unconfirmed reports, like whatever. Like it was our good friend or my good friend Jason Schreier who wrote this story and posted it. And I, like all great Americans, I didn't read the story, right? Because I can't, because it's behind a paywall. So I don't know. I don't know exactly. I saw quotes, which is it's gonna have a female protagonist, and it's not going to be as offensive because employees at Rockstar have been lobbying for a couple of years now to just kind of cut it with the the sophomoric butthole jokes, right? And just all of the stupid jokes. I don't mean jokes about buttholes. When I say butthole jokes, I mean jokes that just
emerged from a butthole.
Yeah. It's the fact that people are out there getting real mad about it is weird, but that is also just how stuff goes nowadays in this this engagement-driven social media world. It's kind of just a nothing story at the moment. They're making a Grand Theft Auto 6, of course. It's going to have more of a story and less of a restaurants with like fast food restaurants with racial slurs in the menu items. You know, you're not going to be able to order a racial slur burger at Slur Burger,
Right.
you know, or whatever the thing is anymore.
Man, I bet they're mad they didn't come up with Slur Burger.
Slur Burger's hilarious.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I'd go for that. So, and it's basically, I assume, because I haven't delved into any sort of a social media thing this week, very busy. So I assume, which is not a thing a journalist would do, but I'm not a journalist, so that's okay. I assume that the majority of the conversation is teenage boys histrionically repeating some rhyming catchphrases or talking about how this is how where they decided to never play Grand Theft Auto again, or saying that Grand Theft Auto 5 wasn't very good anyway, or saying that Red Dead Redemption 2 sucks.
Well, it's also a GOP congressional candidate as well.
Yeah.
Who is interested.
That's the difference.
That's very funny. Well, yeah, that person's probably an idiot. I don't have to know who it is.
Yeah, that's what we're going with on this one. I think we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Game's gonna be cool. Whatever. They don't make that
great.
many games, and whenever they do make one, I'm sorry, every single one of their modernish video games is pretty cool. If you ever are hard pressed for a game to check out that Bully game. I don't know.
Look for the Rockstar logo.
That's a somewhat culturally sensitive, nuanced portrait of something. Check it out. Sure, I don't know.
I play that game. I like that game. Question 2. How do you create urgency in a video game without an explicit timer?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, very clearly the Sonic the Hedgehog underwater music, you don't know when it's going to start.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
There's a timer that's
then it does give you a timer, yeah. But I think this is related to a tweet that I made where there's this person who's making a game that I don't remember the name of, where you're a penguin and you're just rushing through zones. And if you look at most of the GIFs of the game, it looks fine. It's like a regular game where you're running around and jumping on stuff. It's very platformy. But then they did this one where you had a series of buildings to go through, and each building was a tiny platform puzzle, but the building was falling down. The building was sinking. And so you'd get into the next building, and then that would start to sink, and then into the next area, and that would start to sink. And it creates a de facto timer and tension without there being a timer. And it feels real cool, and it's real good to look at because, like, it's completely all together in there. It's thematically sound. The timing of it it becomes the point rather than an extraneous thing that you've stamped on there. So I thought that was super clever. Another one that I like is I do think there is a timer in it, but the timer isn't really what you're paying attention to. In Super Valis 4 rather, for the Super Nintendo, the remixed one, there's the boss health bar is on the bottom. I think I've talked about this before, but the boss health bar is on the bottom of the screen at all times, and it's ticking up. So the longer you take, the more health the boss has when you get to them.
Oh, that's cool.
If you're quick, the boss has less health. And so there's this pull between wanting to explore and get more magic and do whatever, and wanting to basically speedrun the thing because it makes it easier to beat the boss. I love that one.
That mechanic's actually in an earlier game on the Famicom, like a really early game. Biosenshi Dan,
cool,
which came out in '87. And each stage is sort of like a very micro Metroidvania with a boss somewhere. And the longer you take, the more, not only do they have more health, they actually like evolve and get bigger too.
So it's like a little mazy. So you're kind of like, I got to get through here quick to find the guy.
Right. And you're not going to get the cool like secret weapons and stuff if you rush to the boss. So it's
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know why we don't see that more, really. It's smart and interesting, although I like to relax, so maybe that's why. I probably wouldn't do it. I like chilling out. But yeah, if you can imagine like Celeste with micro zones and it's constantly falling. For whatever reason, I don't enjoy, for example, Rondo of Blood, you've got sequences, or is it Rondo or is it Bloodlines? I can't remember. It might be Bloodlines, where you've got rising water. Maybe it happens in both. You got rising water and...
Bloodlines, I believe, is the one the example you're looking for.
Yeah, I think it's Bloodlines. The water line is rising, and you a lot of games do this, and the platforms disappear below, and then if the platform's scrolled off by the time you land on it, then you die. That one, it just feels more arbitrary, whereas the platforms falling, like you can see all of them, but they're falling down from above rather than being destroyed from below. It feels more like I'm being pushed forward, or pulled forward rather than being pushed forward, which I like more. I think it's much better. That just seeing that person's little video made me think about a whole lot of stuff. So I wish I could remember the name of their game so that I could be nice about it. I'll see if I can find it before we finish this topic.
Yeah, and if we do, we'll drop it in the show notes. All right, here's our next question. The iconic death sound effect from Roblox that kind of sounded like a child getting punched in the gut was recently removed from the game due to a copyright claim from Tommy Tallarico. What should they replace it with?
My God, you gotta love it.
Tim, use your soundboard and tell us what to replace it with.
The iconic death sound. So Roblox, when you die, here it is. I've chosen this one.
Thank you.
Pretty
There
good.
you go.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's the one, I believe. I believe that should be it.
I think Jeff Gersman had the best take on Twitter, which was, there goes the Amigos' last revenue stream.
Rough stuff.
Yeah.
Oof.
Oof.
A little fun fact. So, once that was discovered, Tommy Tallarico kind of decided it was like a selling point now that he's the Roblox oof guy, So like,
Yeah.
like if you watch the video from that
While
virtual
suing them or
E3
whatever.
from last year, he's like, and I made the oof sound because and that like that tone that he takes, that's like adults that hate kids but make kids programming, that kind of tone.
Yeah.
That he does.
Oh, yeah.
What's really great about this whole situation is he did not create the oof sound. In fact, he once specifically tweeted the name of the person at his studio who generated the oof sound. That tweet has since been deleted.
Very good.
Oh, dang.
That's hilarious.
So, he decided it was lucrative to be the oof guy.
Oof.
What a rebrand.
Yeah.
So he's done with the video game console business officially, and he's opening up the OOF store.
Right.
Oof store.
Yeah.
But his one customer is gone, so.
Rebranded the Oofia.
Is he going to remake the Shinji Mikami's masterpiece, Oof Troop?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
he's going to start licensing it out to birthday cards. So when you open it up, it's like, oof, you're 40.
Mm.
Oh, very good, very
Should
good.
just be that Mario death sound. Wah! Right?
Yeah.
I think that's Mario Takes Damage. God, Mario Takes Damage is just such a hardcore name for a dot
Yeah.
wave. I mean, that's just fantastic. I'll take some damage, please. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty darn good.
The actual question is, what are we replacing it with, right? Like, that
Yeah.
was the
Yes.
question.
I mean, that was the jumping off point. Sure.
Sure.
Actually, we can do a hybrid.
Thank you.
Just
No, I think I prefer
It's,
the clean thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I do
you.
like the wah! I think that's good.
So it's like the thank you plays on like the frame that you die, right?
Right.
Like, so the player has not like fallen to the ground yet. They are like saying thank you as they die, right?
yeah, very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Implying that all they really want is a release from this
Right.
blocky world.
Like you hear it
Please let me go.
before you know that they're dead. Like,
Exactly.
that is the first thing that happens is you hear a thank you as they're starting
Yeah.
their descent. Yeah.
I think if we knew that the Amico had a startup sound and we knew what that startup sound was, that would be good.
The Amico startup sound, huh?
Yeah.
I don't think they got that far, dude.
Looking at my soundboard here, I've got an Elgato Stream Deck XL. That's not an endorsement because I don't really like it. It's just the only thing that the buttons are too mushy. It's just not a very good thing. But it does what I need it to, which is start recordings while I'm sitting on my sofa. I can start a recording of a video game and then stop it without having to get up the computer. Saves me several gigabytes per year. I'm looking over it, and I'm looking at all the sounds on this soundboard page. And I mean, it is an 8x4 grid of 32 sounds. And this is very interesting. So we've got, a couple classics. There's just a couple of classic ones.
You're
on
not
here.
Alexander.
They're just, they're all pretty nice, right?
Mhm.
I think all of these sounds are pretty good. And There's I'll stop that one. So there's a lot of sounds here. Interesting. I was very interested to find out, and I didn't notice this until just now. There's no Tommy Tallarico sounds on here. So there's not a single one. That was my great joke about Tommy Tallarico's
Thank you.
Influence on sound design. Get owned, Tallarico.
Maybe the real answer is
owned,
it
dude.
should be the Esper sound, aka Klonoa's Wahoo. You get killed and it goes Wahoo, and then there you go. It brightened my day.
Steal from Klonoa. Go for it.
Yeah.
You know what? Klonoa sucks.
No. Klonoa's pretty good. Grab stuff with your
I
ears.
played almost all of the first Klonoa somewhat recently.
More like Clayessa.
Game blows. I'm sorry.
Klonoa.
The vibe is off the charts.
Yeah.
Graphics are hot.
Got good graphics.
The vibe is, again, vibe off the charts. But the design is trash can dumpster.
No, not trash can dumpster.
The feeling of it is it's completely.
It's floppy and loose. That's true. But
it is linear as heck. All of the, I could sit here and pick it apart quite aggressively, but that would be mean. So I'll just say that it should be dunked in the trash. I don't think. Again, love the graphics.
I think looking and sounding good is enough for me to go through, and the rest of it is competent enough that it's good enough for me to go through. I don't think that it's worthy of the trash
cool
can.
Graphics are great, but without game design, it's like wearing a nice pair of shoes with no socks. It's just uncomfortable for me for it to not possess in what I believe is the most important category, which is the feel, the touch, the feel. The fabric of our lives.
That's right.
I believe that's the most important thing. And
yeah.
Again, played most of Klonoa somewhat recently. I can't even say it works as like a kid's game.
I think it does.
And then another game that also sucks. Again, that has beautiful look, beautiful touch, not a beautiful touch, not a beautiful feel, but has just a beautiful look and a vibe off the charts and an aesthetic in the stratosphere, but that otherwise completely depressingly blows to play is Tomba.
Somehow I thought you were going to go with Tomba next.
Yeah, Tomba's butthole trash.
But Tomba has some weird discovery stuff in there that is also adding to it. I don't know. I understand what you're saying, but I think trash is too much. It's a step too far for me.
It comes a time when you're looking at your video games. These days, you're not allowed to discuss this is what I'm getting at here. You're not allowed to discuss a group of video games loosely categorized without throwing some of them in the trash, right? Like you're only one from each row. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Klonoa's on the same row as Bonk. Where's Klonoa going? The trash.
Yeah, fair enough.
Tomba's on the same row as trying to think of what game would be on the same row as
Croc, Legend of the Gavos. No, then they both go.
I would keep Croc over Tomba, but just barely. I'd squeak it out. I like Croc actually. Croc is neat and weird.
The camera is the problem in Croc because they don't give you independent camera control, so it's just kind of flopping around. But
well, this may interest you, but they a lot of times didn't back then.
I'm aware of that.
But also the game is designed very nicely around the camera control they do give you. Nicely is relative.
Yeah. It's easy to miss a platform in Croc.
It's easy to miss a platform in general. That's why they call them platform games, Jerry.
All right, before we go on to the break, it's time for the 4th edition of our monthly segment, The Golden Age of Konami.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Once a month, I get one chance to determine the 3-year window that Tim Rogers defines as Konami's Golden Age. So far, I've guessed 1995 to 1997, 1993 to 1995, and 1989 to 1991. All were incorrect. I'm taking a different strategy today. I'm going to guess, based on the fact that in the classic insert credit community, there used to be a Konami Week discussion once a year, and that ran from 2004 to 2006. So that's my guess this month.
Oh, the answer to that is no.
Dang it. Well, we'll try again next month. We'll be right back after a quick break.
I can't tell you how close you are. I can't tell you.
No, you can't. You're not allowed.
But we missed the break announcement. I guess that's okay. Tim made the break announcement.
I said we'll be back after a quick break.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, Jaffe said it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you say that after the Konami thing?
Yeah, I said it after the Konami thing, yes.
Well, what the heck? Looks like I've lost my dang mind.
Get wild and lose your mind. Take this thing into overtime.
Maybe I will.
Maybe you should.
Maybe I will and should and do.
It's time for us to return to the show we like to call the Insert Credit Show.
I like to call it.
This is the point where we turn to our dirt bag, where listeners who subscribe to patreon.com/insertcredit for just $1 a month can get access to a forum where they can submit questions of their very own, which I select from every week. They also get regular monthly bonus episodes and other neat treats and surprises. This week's question comes from Tom, who says...
But hold on, can I just say this?
Yes.
Every time you ask a question on the dirt bag, every time you submit a question, it basically manifests itself to Alex Jaffe as you just busting out of the wall and yelling it like this. That's what it is. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an evocative image. But this week's question comes from Tom, who asks... Yeah, it is a good one, so I might afford a little extra time for it.
Hey, Rio!
Tom busts out of the wall and asks his question. Kool-Aid Man style.
Yes, he asks, if the Criterion Collection were to release video games, what might the first 5 titles be? And what would the ideal special features be for each of them?
This is a real fun one because I remember Criterion Collection of video games being like one of the first conversations I ever encountered when I went online to read about video games versus reading in magazines. So this is like the magazines had your EGM's monthly Sean Baby trashes whatever the new Barbie game is or whatever, right? And then you go online and there's several large communities that are a bunch of Sean Babies, but then there's other communities where nonstop the only goddarn sort of thing they want to talk about is
non-babies.
What would the Criterion Collection's first pick for video games be? And so this was a thing, but it would be whatever, Sean Baby would have a commentary probably on these Criterion DVDs. They're DVDs, right? Not Blu-rays.
They could be Blu-rays.
We're talking VHS or DVD Criterion, because
I think we're talking about Laserdisc.
so a lot of my conversations, a lot of my theorizings about what a Criterion Collection of video games would be is what I'm trying to say is it's rooted in the discussions people were having circa 1999. Does that make sense?
In which case, Laserdiscs.
But at the same time, I stayed lurking on the fringes of those communities into the heyday of video games. I would nominate the one game off the top of my head that I know would be a Criterion Collection video game, and I know it because it was being discussed as such on the same community where I first encountered this discussion. And it was one of the before the game ever came out, it was being discussed as this. And today, I believe the discussion circulates no less fervently.
You gonna say Eco?
The Criterion Collection video game number 1 is Eco.
Yeah, I knew it. Yeah, I think.
I mean, there it is. I'm not passing judgment either way. I think Eco's a nice game, better than Klonoa at the very least, if you know what I mean. It's a nice game.
Yeah, the Criterion games have to be like of cultural import to a certain type of like pseudo-academic.
Yeah. And
I don't mean pseudo as an insult. I mean like a self-proclaimed or a self-researched academic type of person, a professional game liker. And so I think Eco is right up there. And you get Fumito Ueda to do like a director's commentary. You show some of there are all these prototypes of Eco that have been floated around. You get some of those. Maybe you get to play one. You get you get that European cover with a slipcase.
Yeah. I think we're talking about what the special features would be, right? Like, I feel like Eco's a perfect game to talk about, to just lay out what a Criterion game special features would be. I know Frank probably has very strong opinions about what the ideal special features are for presenting.
Yeah, how much am I being paid here for this?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I can probably guess a couple of them. I can guess a small percentage, but then I also charge a fee past a certain.
It's also
percent.
game by game. There's no template.
Yeah,
for this.
sure.
There you absolutely cannot apply a template for this.
For Eco, you would want the original PlayStation 2 game running as it ran on a PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
You would obviously want the Bluepoint Games remaster, the 60 FPS one. You'd want that on there as well. And then I think there should be an update to that old remaster. Just give it 4K rendering.
I agree with you, and in terms of like update the game, I'm sure you could tweak that game to make it more friendly to play. Now you can edit it, and something that I often think about when it's like Criterion Collection but games. I don't remember the name of it. There's an Orson Welles film that, like many of his films, was left unfinished and like kind of released without him, sort of thing. It's not Magnificent Ambersons, it's some other one.
No,
I rented it once, and it was 3 discs. The Hollywood release after they took it from him, right? And they sort of like hacked together something that wasn't quite his vision. Disc 2, I think, was the last surviving cut that he edited, which was not done, but it's like the purest sort of vision, right? And then the 3rd disc, I think it was the 3rd disc, it might have been the first one, was the Criterion cut of this. And it was like they took surviving documentation and like interpreted the surviving cut of his and took some like deleted scenes that survived and things like that and tried to composite what they felt a Wells version might be to try to get it as close as possible. Like I don't know that there's the equivalent of that for Eco, but you know, I suspect if you talk to Ueda, there might be. Regardless, when I think of how I'd want to do older games and make people appreciate them without pretending like it's the old days, I often think of that, like make a new cut, make one that is easier to play, make one that for the existing fans kind of like mixes in some new elements so that it's not the same game again. A really good analog for that actually is there was a reissue of Nirvana's album In Utero. They didn't like remaster it to make it better. They just went, okay, what if we put this crappy solo in here instead? You know, they kind of like put in little tweaks from the original recordings to give you a different experience if you were already a fan. You know, I think of stuff like that as well. But I mean, I'm going off on a tangent. I think it's you can't template this, and it's like game by game, and it's always in the service of what makes this game specifically significant, and how do we just target that and make you understand that interactively.
For Eco, Frank, I had a long conversation with Ueda about movement and action, and he felt that he was never able to get a person who could execute that the way that it would feel best.
Ooh, okay. That's good.
You can just use the word good if you want.
So I could use the word, well, he didn't say good. Good was what I was thinking about. But anyway, if you got the motion, the movement to feel good, then I think you'd have that. And then add like a couple more vistas that Eco and what's her name, Yona or whatever, can look at and stuff. And Yorda, that's the one. Yeah, Yorda.
Yogurt.
Yorda.
It's Yoda. Because she says at the very end, the last line, it's so hilarious. Do you guys remember? Like, it's like the whole game's in this made-up language, and then she points at Eco at the end and says, "You're the man, Eco."
Yeah, it was pretty funny when she did that.
Well, that's only the secret
Thank
ending
you.
if you have the I don't think that's a canon ending. That's like that watermelon eating one.
You play through it a second time on hard difficulty.
Yeah.
Here's another candidate for this.
Yes, we need them.
I think Panzer Dragoon Saga is a great one because it's never been ported to anything.
No.
People talk about it all the time as like this classic thing, but none of these people have played it, you know? And it definitely has bits of it that are not fully finished or fleshed out. Like there's a town, but that town is like, it's got some stuff you can do in it, but it's clear that there was meant to be more, and there was probably meant to be more than one town. And, you know, Futasuki is still out there doing stuff. You could get all his documents. He documented a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You'd get like the original Saturn version perfectly emulated. Then you would get a remaster of it. And then you would get just like, you'd get a soundtrack, you'd get documents, you'd get interviews with people, you would get, I think you would need to have probably for Eco as well, but I think some people would like a journalistic commentary on it, like, I don't know, us talking about it and how it was significant and how it was influential and that kind of stuff, to give people the context for it.
You know, if we're doing one of those memes where it's you can only take one from each row, and one of the rows is Panzer Dragoon, Panzer Dragoon Zwei, Panzer Dragoon Saga, and Panzer Dragoon Orta. I'm going with Zwei, man.
Sure.
That's the most, in my opinion, I was going to say.
So
I think commercially Brandon's got it though, honestly.
Yeah,
I think that the people are hungry for that, even if it's not the best game. I think they want that game.
Yeah, I mean,
I watch a lot of Criterion Collection movies over here, whereas Brandon watches his VHS stuff. I watch the Criterion Collection.
I'll watch it.
I'm just saying it's a similar hobby, right? So
Sure.
there's really very little meaningful difference at the end of the day. There's plenty of trash on the Criterion Collection. I
think Sonic 2 would be a really interesting one to do because
Sonic 2?
Sonic 2, yeah, because the game that shipped is not really the vision that they had for it. And I'm not saying that you can completely reconstruct the vision, but what I'm interested in is the equivalent of when a Blu-ray shows like animatics or something, right? Like rough cuts or like just shows like the storyboards, but like animates them to make you kind of like understand the vision without it being complete.
Yeah, I mean, Yasuhara has all those maps for sure. And he's got all the little traps and all that business. That'd be great.
I literally know where the drawn Yasuhara map for Genocide City Zone is. It's
Wow.
It's in this state.
Yeah.
And as are a lot of the art assets. Like we can get a lot of that stuff together and we can start sort of piecing together what the vision was. And again, I don't think you put in the work to like complete a game. I think it's okay to have Sonic just running around in like an empty environment, right? Or just like mock up a few screens with art assets to be like, here's what this might have looked like. But try to like reconstruct what that original vision was, which was more of a time travel story. And there's some really interesting and very compelling research into how like some of the assets, like I think the soundtrack, like I watched a YouTube video that totally convinced me that the soundtrack was written for that original time travel thing. And that if you actually look at the order of the songs in code as opposed to in game, like it actually does kind of follow this time travel thing, which is really interesting. So I don't know, like that would be a fun one to sort of reconstruct from everyone's memories and documentation to help better understand what the vision was so that you could better appreciate what the final product was.
That would be very interesting to see people's reactions to, because they would be probably as mad at Sonic, which is why I think it's a good idea. They would be as mad at Sonic 2 being selected as one of the first Criterion Collection video games as they were mad that Naughty Dog is remaking The Last of Us. I think it would be on like the same exact level. It's like, there's a million, it's so easy to play Sonic 2. It's everywhere. And it's like, that's not the point here.
What do you think about Virtua Fighter 2? Because there's a lot of versions and there's like a purity to the arcade version.
I think it sounds like what we're saying here is that Sega Ages 2500 series for the PlayStation 2 was already pretty much a Criterion Collection of video games.
Yeah, because, I mean, they got Gunstar Heroes on there, you know?
Yeah, they didn't do Panzer Dragoon Saga, but if they would have...
Force Fi. They only did the first one.
Yeah, maybe... if they'd done Panzer Dragoon Saga, there'd be a whole, there'd be more people out there who'd played it. But there's a lot of Sega stuff you can think of as being in the Criterion Collection. You got to pick one Sega game, though. What's the one Sega game we would pick of all these ones we're discussing here?
Sonic 2 for me.
Sonic 2?
Yeah,
Sonic 2 is good.
Panzer Dragoon Saga?
Saga's good.
I see you are disagreed, so I propose we split the difference with Panzer Dragoon Zwei. Because that's what I was getting at.
And a 2, yeah. I want to drop in a little bit more generic stuff for how I approach these things philosophically, which is that I think that there's a level of restoration that can be done that is inarguably not going against the original intent of these games.
You talking about Night Dive Studios, our good friends?
I think
I'm just saying
they swerve a little too far in one direction sometimes. Like I do not think that Power Slave is Power Slave. As a Power Slave, that's not
I think
Slave.
that Doom 64, the Quake, man.
The Dooms feel great, but Power Slave is a very like digital movement game. If you know what I mean, it's very like D-pad and transitioning that into a fully analog. It's just a different game now. It's fine, but it's a very different game. But when I say restoration, I mean, for example, Digital Eclipse did something that falls into how I view this, which is on the Samurai Showdown collection. When the quote unquote camera in those 2D fighters, zooms out, quote unquote, in the original game, you're running at a 240p resolution. So when it's scaling, it's like eating pixels, right? Like it's just reducing pixels to scale out. But they rendered the game at like 4x so that when it zooms out, you don't actually lose any of the pixels. And to me, that's a proper restoration because it's like, I think inarguable that anyone working on the game wouldn't have preferred that. Yeah. They were just doing the best they could.
It was just impossible.
It was just exactly.
It was physically impossible.
Yeah. Another one would be audio or like texture asset compression. If we're able to dig out those original source files and make them sound better, which again has been done. This isn't new. Like the Double Fine remakes of the LucasArts games, they went back to the tapes and re-recorded them digitally. Not re-recorded, but digitize the original tapes as opposed to using the compressed audio that was on the original discs. That level of restoration, I think, is very quote unquote Criterion Collection. I think that's mandatory for a product like that is to really consider, like, are there pieces of this that are the equivalent of rescanning the original negatives, and what is the video game equivalent of that?
I mean, so we've got a lot of people out there who are doing really good restorations of stuff and video games and putting out really good collections. You got M2 is wonderful at putting out these collections. I like all the stuff Night Dive does, Digital Eclipse.
Hamster is doing well now. I had no idea that Hamster turned it around.
Hamster's Arcade Archives thing. Those Sega Ages releases for the likes of the Nintendo Switch. There's a lot of these really good things going. But Criterion obviously does stuff differently, right? So like what's the Criterion difference, I guess, is the thing to sketch here. What would you call what would Criterion do? I mean, obviously they would select Eco as one of the first games, right?
They would also somehow be able to sell games that nobody wants. Like we don't have the equivalent of that. Our development budget for even just an old game being republished somewhere is extremely prohibitive to getting anything obscure.
Well,
out
I mean,
there.
Limited Run can do that. So I think there is a path toward it. Like Limited Run can sell games.
Yeah, but what Limited Run does is just like ROM in an emulator, though. Like that's the only reason they can do it.
No, I'm just saying that it is possible to.
It is sort of possible, but you're talking about games where, if you're relying just on the Limited Run, you're talking like 2,000 a SKU, right? Across 2, maybe 3 SKUs. So
yes,
it's like
it's not a huge amount of money.
You have to budget a game that can sell less than 10,000 units and be profitable, and in a studio system that's basically impossible. And you're not going to create a product that is on the level that we're talking about at that budget. So
yeah,
my take is that it's impossible to be a Criterion Collection unless you can establish a market even larger than Limited Run that will buy whatever you're selling.
Well, if it's the Criterion company, the Criterion name, every time Criterion has new releases, you'll see people tweeting, I love the cover art of this, can't wait to buy this again. The special features, the bonuses. I believe that every Criterion video game would by necessity contain a disc, like a Blu-ray disc containing a, not tooting my own horn, not putting my own name forward because I have my own thing going, but containing like a 5-6 hour, like lusciously, luxuriously produced video documentary presented very well with lots and lots and lots of...
If it were literally Criterion, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
if it were literally Criterion,
You're not saying that is the best way to do it. Got it. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's in my opinion, it would be the ultimate treat for like the fan of a game to get this very luxuriously produced Ken Burns documentary about the game in addition to the game. And I think that would be very on brand for Criterion. But also Criterion was for me very, very important as a youth who had his mom's hand-me-down car and a Barnes & Noble pretty close, because I was able to watch Akira Kurosawa movies for lots of money, right? And I was able to get the Seven Samurai. I was able to watch these movies with subtitles that I'd never seen before. So I am saying one of the very first flop of Criterion video games would need to contain Linda Cube again for the PlayStation 1.
Nice.
It would need a full translation of Linda Cube, I would posit as definitely necessary as a game that would fit all of these criteria I've put up.
Probably what you would do, because the Saturn, PlayStation, and PC Engine versions are all different and have different stuff. You'd fuse them.
You'd fuse the scenarios, perfect the graphics. Yes.
Everything we're talking about has been done somewhere. It's just there's not a consistent line. I mean, we're talking about fusing elements. Again, just, digital clips upstairs, like literally upstairs from me right now. The Blizzard collection they did, like Rock and Roll Racing and Lost Vikings, maybe Blackthorn. I don't think Blackthorn.
Love those games.
Those two games, they had different content across different SKUs, and there is sort of a digital Eclipse cut that fuses it all together into one coherent experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's been done as well. It's just, I don't know. There's very little that hasn't actually been done. There just hasn't been a consistent vision yet that has dominated.
Frank, have you been looking at Hamster's stuff lately and what they've been doing?
Not lately. The last I looked, it was just kind of like, here's MAME with one game. But
have they unbare bonesified the presentation?
They have. So, I mean, the presentation is still pretty bare bonesy, but they have been doing stuff where, like, they'll get the original programmer of the game in, and they will, like, painstakingly make sure that all of the bugs work correctly, unless they're things that break the game or the score loop or whatever. Like, things that the community relies on for score attacks will remain, but things that break the game will be patched and changed. You should check out O5 Pro on Twitter, and he's constantly going into the dip switch zone and finding out which incredibly obscure things are lovingly maintained by Hamster in these new versions that they're doing. And so it's pretty interesting because they're able to do one a week of these, and they've done
they're
like
the South Park of this. Yeah,
they do like a live stream every week, and they like celebrate the people that are getting the high scores in all of these games, and a lot of these games are just massively obscure. They're just, who knows or cares about the differences, but some people do.
I think that's really interesting, but my issue with these products is that the target audience is exactly the people who already know these games, and that is an audience that is shrinking and dying.
I'm dying, Frank, but I ain't shrinking. Okay, let me tell you, I'm one of those things, and definitely not one of the other ones.
The weekly leaderboard thing. They have like a score attack or a caravan mode for every game, even if it didn't have one. And through so doing, they have created fans who are like, I'm going to play the new Hamster release of whatever arcade game it is, and I'm trying to get into the top 10.
And I've always wanted that sort of communal experience, and I really thought Playdate would be that, and then I got it, and like there was no one to play with, so I just didn't have one.
Well, also the Playdate, they're like, everybody has to have the same experience, which means when you get the thing, like there's a time release for the games,
right?
It's not like you get it and then they're all there because everybody else had them too. What a weird idea.
It was
not the right way to do it.
It was a very weird idea.
So, okay, if Criterion's going to do 5 games at a time, right?
Yeah.
5 games at a time. I think the first dump of them, they should do one sort of modern classic. They should do one translation of a previously untranslated video game. And they should do one director spotlight of like retro stuff. So I would propose 3 of the first 5 games. Criterion Collection for games, number 1, Eco.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, the work of Yu Suzuki. Every single one of his games, every version of all of them. That can't be that hard. Shenmue's on there. Go for it. There's those recent re-releases.
No problem.
Right? Yeah, just go for it. It can all fit on one Blu-ray disc.
I mean, that's the main issue with game development is can it fit on a disc? So
Right.
as long as the data
Yeah.
fits, it should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my number 3, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say Tokimeki Memorial. The Tokimeki Memorial Forever With You Saturn and PlayStation versions fused into one thing. That would be my number 3 choice.
Okay.
And then I don't know about the other 2.
You are 60% Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, which is why we got to move it over.
A case could be made for Myst. No matter how many times you bought that thing, it feels like a Criterion
Yeah.
kind of a
No, for
game.
sure.
And the documentation is all there. I think Myst is a good candidate.
Yeah.
And then I want like France or something at this point, like Another World. Just put Another World there.
Yeah.
Another World, you could also make a version of that feels better to play as
Yeah.
well.
You can just get Eric Chahi talking over it.
Yeah, get him to
Perfect.
talk over the whole thing.
Do a director's commentary, basically.
Another World would be a little bit unfortunate for the fact that Eco is most directly inspired by
Mhm.
Another World, very hardcore, and that Another World would be included as a later. It would have a later number in the Criterion.
That's
The
okay.
Criterion Collection for games number 1. It's got to be Eco.
I also do think you could make a strong argument for like number 20 to be Katamari, because Criterion likes to every once in a while prove like, no, we like fun, goofy stuff also. It doesn't all have to be serious.
Yeah, and then maybe, but the best running thing will be people wondering when Shadow of the Colossus is going to be, and then it would be like number 102 or whatever.
Yeah.
It would be like very eventually into the future. It would include the PS2 version, so you can see it run at 6 FPS
Mm-hmm.
when the Colossuses are mad. What would number 5 be though? So I was liking Star Control 2 as one to put on there.
Elite, maybe?
Elite.
Or is Elite too much to wrap one's brain around? I don't know.
Well, Elite is one of those ones where does anyone want to play it or is it only historically interesting?
Yeah, but then you could have like a good video that explains all the stuff. But I think you might be
Yeah,
right.
I think one of the prerequisites for these games is that the cool aforementioned alluded to long documentary video that they would probably put out should never be
More
a
interesting.
replacement for playing the software.
Yeah, and again, that's how Criterion would approach it
Mhm.
as Criterion. But what I've always wanted and pushed for is this is on a video game console with a controller. We can do anything we want on the screen. What is the interactive equivalent of the giant hardcover art book?
Oh, yeah.
So
The Sonic Jam's museum mode.
Sonic Jam
Sega's at
is
the forefront of this.
pretty close. Yeah, I agree.
For
with you,
years,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Sonic Jam Museum, dude.
Yeah, that's still the template.
Every Criterion game would have something like
I
that.
keep saying I'd love, like, if Sonic Jam were a live game, essentially, and they just keep adding Sonics to it, and then they add more material to it. And so, like, this month, new Sonic Jam content is dropping. We got these cartoons in here now. We got this thing. We got this prototype. We got the Michael Jackson music back, everybody.
with the
So-
actual tapes that are still in the vault. Look at this.
Yeah.
Oh man, so like it's very famous. It's very renowned, and it is often joked about that the Criterion Collection of films happens to include Michael Bay's Armageddon. Right. This is
Mhm.
like one of those facts people love to throw around while smoking weed or kicking a can or shooting turds or whatever it is people do. So it's they love to say Armageddon's part of the Criterion Collection, dude. Right. So maybe that should be our game number 5 is something like Armageddon.
No, I don't think it should be 5. I think it should.
Mortal Kombat 2.
That would be further down the line, but they definitely should get something like Turok in there.
I mean,
or
this
whatever.
is the modern Criterion, so they're trying to they need to prove that they're doing something different from what they've been doing their whole existence. So they need to prove that the marketing that they've thought it through.
I think it's funny that we have not mentioned any Nintendo games, and I think it's because like Sega lends itself to this because, as we've discussed many times in the past, Sega has these kind of not necessarily finished, but definitely good idea kind of video games.
Sega's weird as heck.
And then Nintendo has these things that they spent like 50 years making, and then they're like, well, there it is. That's what you get.
Well, I think for me, even in Fantasyland, Nintendo is not going to work with anyone else.
That's true as well.
And also Nintendo insists on putting out their own horrible. The reason the Criterion Collection of video games like conversation persists is Nintendo is like really bad at putting out updated versions of their games. Like they do the egregious charge you $5 for Super Mario Brothers every 3 years or whatever it is they do, right?
Yeah.
Like here's a new way to play Super Mario Brothers for $19.95 a month or whatever, right? So and then that Mario 3D collection was pretty bare bones and somewhat bad. I don't know. It has Mario Galaxy in 1080p, which is nice. There's a whole lot going on with Nintendo stuff, and the Super Mario All Stars was kind of an early Criterion template, but now Nintendo is just kind of, I don't know. They just kind of love to keep their stuff unplayable and obscure, or charge you $5 for a version of it that has a help icon stuck on the screen. Square Enix, they're definitely the anti-Criterion if we had to pick. Right, They're the anti-Criterion at bringing stuff, and anything non-Kingdom Hearts. Square Enix is just real bad at representing. They're trying to earn some good faith back with that Live Alive remake. See, that would have been a good Criterion Collection candidate. Was that Live Alive game, because it had never been translated.
Oh, that's a good, like, critics love it and you've never heard of it kind of game.
Critics love it. You've never heard of it. You've never played it, and neither have the critics.
You know, it would be fun,
it's like,
but
I am learning that about a half hour into that game. Yeah,
fantastic.
Nobody would ever do this, but something that Criterion sometimes does is they just did this like Once Upon a Time in China collection, which I bought, and they have all these documentaries on here, and short films and things, many of which
those are good films,
do not have anything to do with Once Upon a Time in China, except that like one person associated with it was the cinematographer or whatever, uncredited or something like that. But it does have like cultural relevance to it.
Yeah.
So I think it would be really interesting to do a Sonic 2 Criterion edition where along with Sonic 2, you get like High Seas Havoc and Socket and Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel and just like all the things that tried to be like Sonic on the Genesis, that tried to recapture that magic, and then it would put like a weird context around Sonic.
Yeah, there's kids out there who don't know how epidemic it was.
Yeah.
How epidemic the mascot platform rodent nonsense was. Like you could do just rodents and be like, here's how many rodents we had in video games.
That's not a rodent, it's a marsupial.
We are way over time, so I'd like to go right into our lightning round. What are the 5 games on this list? Go.
Eco
is mandatory. I actually think Another World should be mandatory as well. Well, maybe not top 5 though. I mean, I can go either way with what you said.
Another World should be number
agree.
10. Another World will be the 10th game released, because
But
they'll do a beautiful.
At the same time though, I like the idea of if you are like getting all 5 of these and like deciding to have this experience that we're presenting to you. I like the idea of immediately being able to contrast these games and appreciate them both in different ways because you have the contrast.
I'll buy it, right? But the Another World also has to come with Heart of the Alien and Heart of Darkness.
That makes sense.
Oh, sure. Let's put them all.
Just put them on there.
Because like the Criterion Collection, they like to do collections within their collection where they're like noir films in color or whatever. And so
I watched all of those, dude. I watched them all.
Some of them are boring.
I win. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there is a compilation.
They're not boring. They're just Criterion, baby. It's not boring. It's the Criterion Collection. It's
So I liked your Yu Suzuki idea. I just think it's unreasonable to put them all into one thing. But is there an equivalent, right? So we kind of did Chahi essentially by including the others. But should we be more direct? Should it be like Jeff Minter or something, right? Like the complete Minter, or
That's
like
too much stuff again.
or even just like spotlighting a system and I don't know. Or like a company. I don't know. Like a compilation that tells a story with a set of games as opposed to focusing on one game.
You know who wants to be in this collection but won't be is Peter Molyneux.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But we could get him in there.
Not with the 10-foot pole. I mean, I have in my head a perfect. If Criterion wants to call me up on the phone and ask, I can tell you exactly what to do. But I don't want to do it because it ties in a little bit too much to something I'm working on for a little deeper in the future. So I don't want to mention.
Okay, so do we have Another World as number 2?
Yes, Another World is number 2.
I want Sonic 2. Just get it in there.
Yeah.
Okay, Sonic 2 is number 3.
Sonic 2 is an interesting reconstruction one, and I think we learn a lot from that.
To prove how much they can do with the game, quote unquote, everybody has played.
Mhm.
Yes, I like that a lot.
Okay.
That's 3.
Yeah.
Sonic 2.
I'm going to say number 5 has to be, I think Tokimeki Memorial translated with commentaries by Igarashi and a whole lot of that stuff.
I like it. Yeah.
I think that's
License your
definitely
thing in there. We'll put your thing on the disc somewhere. Yeah.
That should be on there.
They get for a heavy licensing fee.
Would it be weird to put Myst in as number 5 and just have all the interviews and all the conversations around how it was so important, and maybe put in a couple other like HyperCard looking video games? Or is that not?
No, that's cool. I like
Is
it.
that a deeper cut?
Put in the manhole for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put in Pissed with John Goodman.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Myst also for the Criterion audience. Like, my mom cares about Myst, so it kind of makes sense. I don't know.
I think Myst also Criterion does a decent job of now you'll finally watch this. You know.
Yeah.
So it's like there's probably a lot of people out there who have never played Myst but know it and even say they like it. You know, there's got to be a lot of those out there.
Yeah.
And now they'll finally play it.
All right, we have our list.
You know, yeah, dude.
We did it. Congratulations. It only took us half an episode. This is now the time to recommend the things that you would like to recommend to our audience.
I'm going to recommend everyone check out the Criterion channel.
Yeah, it's great.
And if you have any complaint that it's more expensive than another streaming service, or you have 8 or 9 streaming services, just ditch them all, Jerry. I ditched them all for a while and had a very good time just watching Criterion. I don't ditch them all now. Because I need to stay on top of The Conversation, which is a film starring Gene Hackman.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Also, just the cultural conversation. The Conversation is quite a good film. I wouldn't call that my recommendation for the week, because I just feel like everybody's already seen it. If you're listening to this show,
They might not have.
Probably already seen it.
If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
I'm giving people it's called the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
I'm just assuming you're all, everyone, I'm giving you all permission to just watch it real quick and then pretend you'd seen it before. Very good film. I had a very good joke about The Conversation in my Cyberpunk 2077 video. So if you want to find that, it's somewhere in the 9 hours of that video. Good luck. The dense labyrinth of that video. There's a really good The Conversation joke. So if you know that one, thanks.
I got a few things. Or Frank, do you have any first?
Get some good sleep.
Yes.
It just kind of seems to cascade to everything. Get some good sleep, and once you've mastered that, which I've not quite mastered, but I'm attempting, your next trick to have a good day every day, poop on the regular.
All right.
That's all I got, folks. Yeah, just I don't leave the house till I poop. That's my rule.
Good rule.
I say take a dump because I believe it sounds better.
All right,
I'll
do that too.
I like to
take a morning dump. Yeah, back up that dump truck to the toilet and let go.
I gotta go put the cake in the basement, as we say.
I know. Are you more leaving than taking?
Hey, man.
Yeah.
I don't make the rules.
Okay, I've got 2 recommendations and a little tiny story that is somewhat amusing that requires. Well, it doesn't require. Let's see if y'all want to participate. So my mom was here for 3 weeks. She wasn't staying here, but she came over several times, and one of those times I happened to be playing a video game. Only one of those times.
Mm-hmm.
She heard it, and she said, "That's just the worst noise I've ever heard." Can you guess what console I was playing? I assumed that you can probably guess.
I mean, I just remember being very frustrated, even as a video game player, by the sound of my brother playing Pokemon on a Game Boy. It just it just didn't sound good. So any portable system, it's like hearing, when someone's on the phone It's one of the most obnoxious things. I'm sure a psychiatrist or a psychologist in the crowd could explain it as with some term. There's probably some 2-word vocabulary phrase, but it's like it's particularly annoying to hear someone on the phone because you only hear half of the conversation. It's particularly just way more annoying than listening to 2 people talk loudly. It's interesting. So portable games are worse, in my opinion.
Well, it was the Genesis. Which I think is prime culprit for horrible noise.
Some with gems, I'm guessing. One of them gems games.
It was Turrican. It was Mega Turrican I was playing.
Okay.
Oh,
all right.
MT. I like that one.
It was just funny to have my mom come over here while I'm playing a Genesis game as I'm 41 years old and be like, well, that's a terrible sound. Just like the more things change, the more they stay the same. And in this case, nothing changed. So that was funny to me. And then my 2 recommendations are, if you drink wine, you should buy a wine aerator because they're very cheap and they do make your wine taste a little better. To get the oxygen bubbles in there, costs like, I don't know, $10 to get one of those rabbit ones or whatever. Just fill it with bubbles. It's good. And then the last recommendation
one of them
I have
rabbit ones
is if you live in the Bay Area, once again a regional recommendation. Sorry, you should buy Alvarado Street bread. They got the California style one. It's my favorite, like wheat bread, sprouted wheat type of bread that you can get pretty much anywhere. You can get your Dave's or whatever, but that's a little sweet. This has a nice tang to it, and it feels a little fermented and hearty.
Dave's.
I highly recommend Alvarado Street. You can get it in the Bay Area and the North Bay. I'm pretty sure, at least, if not some other places. So look it up.
I go 100% for Ezekiel 4:9. The bread. You ever get that? The Ezekiel. Yeah. Anybody out there who knows the Ezekiel? That's the one I usually go for. Is the sprouted grain one? Food for life, bro. Food for life. It has the lowest acid level of any bread on the market.
This one's kind of a different experience than that.
In case you, like me, have burned through layers of your esophagus, taking Frank's recommendation too literally by getting too much sleep. If you're going to don't sleep right away as soon as you don't have anything else to do. You need to make sure you wait at least 2 hours after you eat dinner, or else you'll end up like me with your esophagus burned through in several parts. It's healing. Thanks to Ezekiel sprouted grain, Food for Life bread.
I have some recommendations. I would like to recommend The Bear on FX. That's a good show. It's a very intense, very kind of claustrophobic, anxious look at working at a restaurant that's heavily in debt, and that kid from Shameless is in there. One of the good ones.
And in the intro sequence where they show a bunch of Chicago things, they show the Oakland Tribune because they did a bad Google image search.
Despite that, nevertheless, I started it on a whim and ended up watching the whole thing in one go. It's a good time. If you liked Uncut Gems, you'll like this. I also recommend that if you're listening to this show in some format where you can subscribe to or review podcasts, that you do that for us. It's really helpful. You could also go to patreon.com/insertcredit, where you could become a patron to submit your own topics, listen to monthly bonus episodes, and get other exclusive content. You can also join our community at forums.insertcredit.com. Follow us on Twitter @insertcredit, or search for Insert Credit on YouTube. This show is edited by Esper Quinn, with original music by Kurt Feldman. I'm Alexander the Great.
I'm Frank Cifaldi. I'm not that great.
I'm Tim Rogers.
I'm Brandon the Acceptable.
And take dumps on the regular. Oh, by the way, Frank, you won this episode. So
okay,
come up with a question next week.
Cool.